So I am working on a Buddy the Elf portrait, shade by number portrait worksheet. So the very first thing that I do is I find a fairly good quality image, portrait image of whoever I want the character to be on the internet. And I actually am gonna edit this. I'm gonna turn this grayscale. And I do everything, by the way, on my iPad using Procreate. It's the only way that I've been able to do it. I'm sure there's a way you could probably do it by hand, but I don't really know what that process will look like. So Procreate is how I do everything. So before I do anything else with my picture, I'm actually gonna turn this grayscale. So I'm gonna go to Edit, and then this little 3-ring section right there, it'll give you all of these filters. And I am gonna go all the way down to Noir. And I like Noir because it gives a good range of values, I feel like, better than the other two grayscale filters do. And then I feel like if I need, I'm actually gonna go back and tweak the settings a little bit. So I am going to just really try and have a good range of value, making sure that I have solid blacks, some midtones, and also some highlight areas. And I'll be quite honest, I really don't think I need to tweak this one that much. I think it's got a pretty good range of value already. Yeah, so I'm actually gonna leave that alone. So you've got your grayscale portrait. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to posterize this. And I like to use pinetools.com. It's a website online, it's free. So I can't remember the exact URL, so I'm actually gonna Google it. I am gonna type in posterize Pine Tools. Okay, here we go, so it's the first one. Okay, so now you're gonna choose how many values you wanna have. I typically stick with 3 or 4. I think with this one, I wanna do 4. And then I'm gonna go choose file, photo library, and then I'm gonna pick Buddy. And then I'm gonna go down to posterize. Okay, so here's the photo that I'm gonna have to work with. So I'm gonna save this. And, oh wait, I'm sorry. Save to photos. All right. So now I'm gonna go ahead and open up Procreate, and I am going to open up a brand new file, and I'm actually going to use the paper because it's 8.5 by 11. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert my photo. Here we go. Okay, now now I'm gonna go ahead and make it bigger. Come on now. All right. So essentially, I'm gonna use my posterized image and I'm going to create another layer. And then I'm gonna go down to this first layer and I'm actually going to turn down the opacity. Not all the way down. I still wanna be able to see everything, but it needs to be a lot lighter. So what I'm essentially gonna do is I have a new layer on top of the image, and I'm gonna just trace all of the shapes and all of the different values that I see. And the brush that I'm gonna use is, I'm actually gonna use the Ink Studio pen. It's really clean, it's really crisp. So this is the one that I'm gonna be using. And I have my brush sit to about maybe 5%. That tends to be a pretty good size. Okay, now here's something to kind of keep in mind. When I trace all of the shapes and all of the values, my goal is not to make it look exactly like the image. I'm using the image as a reference, and I am just using it to help me figure out where all of the different value planes are. So there are gonna be a lot of areas that I just have to improvise, specifically the hair. There's so many like small, tiny little shapes. And number one, I know that's gonna take me forever, but two, my students are not gonna be able to color everything in individually. So I'm actually gonna be doing a simplified version, tracing version of what my image is. And I like to actually start at the eyes. I don't know why, I just do. So this is what my tracing process looks like. So I'll start with the eye. Oh, that's actually probably too big. I'm actually going to turn that down to about a 4. Okay, so that's how I'm drawing the eyeball. Again, it just had a couple of little shaped values. I just simplified the edges and tried to block off the values as best as I can. Okay, so I'm gonna do the rest of the eye just so you can see how I trace over all the shapes. Again, I simplify the edges. I like to kind of make them a little curvy because I feel like that just makes it look a little bit more organic. But I am not stressing out on making everything look perfect. Okay. Okay, so we can now see what it looks like so far. I'm going to take this layer off. Okay, so that's what my line work looks like so far. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try and finish drawing all of my shapes. Okay, so I think I have pretty much all of my line work done. So as you guys saw, there were definitely some areas that I just improvised because I just could not outline every single little shape and every single little edge and every single little line. So I just simplified some areas and then I just kind of added here and there, and that's totally fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to create another layer that has the 4 values in place. And I do this for a few reasons. I do this one so that my students can have a finished version that they can look at as reference, like a digital complete version. But I also do this to make sure that I closed off all of my lines and making sure that I separated all of the planes the way that I feel like is going to look best. So to do that is I'm actually going to take my line work and I'm going to duplicate it. And this is the layer that I am going to click and drag my 4 values. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the opacity up on this so I can see. So you can clearly see we've got like a solid black value, we've got a really dark gray value, and then we have a very light gray value, and then finally we have our white areas. So those are going to make up the 4 values that my kids are going to use. So I'm going to just, I've got my black on, so I'm going to click and drag all of the black areas and pray to God that I have closed off all of the lines that I need. Okay. This is kind of like the moment of truth, making sure that what I drew is going to actually work. By the way, if you have not gotten an iPad with Procreate as an art teacher, I highly recommend it. You can do so many things with Procreate in regards to teaching. You can record demos with it. You can make worksheets, obviously, with it, which is what I do. There's just, I absolutely love mine. And I think every art teacher should have one. Okay, let's see. I think this is a dark value right there. I guess I can make, no, I think I'll leave those alone for now. Are there any other ones? Okay, right here, right there. I think that's, no, I missed a few more. Is that it? I think that's it. Okay, so I'm gonna check. Okay, so those are all of my dark, like my solid black. So now I'm going to go and I'm gonna add my next value, which is a dark gray. And I'm just gonna click and drag where they belong. I think this goes there. I'm gonna color that in real quickly. Okay, so this is gonna be the part where I am, oh, that's a dark gray right there. And I think this is, I think this is dark gray right here. Okay, yeah, so the hair is obviously the space where I improvise the most, but honestly, for this assignment for the students, I don't want to make it too overwhelming for them because my kids really struggle with shading, like really struggle with shading, and they just dread it. They flinch every time I just use the word shade. So this is why I made these, because it just makes shading a little bit more fun for them. And if I can just make art a little bit more fun, then I mean, I've done my job, right? Okay, I'm gonna make this. Oh, I've got an open line somewhere, so I gotta go back and fix it. All right, y'all, I'm going to turn on the time lapse so I can go ahead and finish this. All right, guys, so I have completed my line work of my shade by number portrait on my iPad. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and make the worksheet of it. So I actually make all of these in Canva. So what I do is I go up to create design, and I am going to pick the flyer option right here. Okay, now I'm gonna try to not make this like a Canva tutorial because I could probably talk about that forever. But essentially what I do is I actually sent both of these files to my email. I sent the one with the shades, and then I also sent the blank version. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to upload the blank version. Here, upload files. I think it's the second one. Yeah. Okay, so here's my line work right here. So essentially what I'm gonna do is I am going to manually go in and I'm gonna add all of the numbers where they go. Typically I do a 1 for the darkest shade, which is the blacks, and then I'll do a 2, which is gonna be like the dark gray, and then I'll add a 3 for the light grays, and then all of the white areas I just leave blank because most people don't want a number to show up on the areas that are white. Now what I like to do while I do this is I like to have my finished copy over here, next to me so I can see it. So that way I can kind of go back and use it for reference. So I just go to text and then I'll do a 1. And what I will do is I will use my photo reference for here, and I will just go back and add all of the numbers where they belong. So I'm gonna do that real quickly, and then I'll catch you guys back here in just a little bit. Okay, and here's the finished product, you guys. So once again, I went in and I added 3s where all of the third value scales were, 2s where all the 2s were, and 1s where all the 1s were. Definitely takes some time. And then I add my title, and then I try to add my little value scale thing right here. I can't always match the squares with the exact color that was on my Procreate example, but I just do the best I can, you know. But this makes shading so much easier and so much more approachable for a lot of my students. I've had people ask me why I add so many numbers, and to be completely honest, if I don't number them, my kids are not gonna know where the shades go. So this is just the format that works best for my students. So because this is just something that has always worked really well for me in my classroom, I thought that I would share with all of you. So in case you ever want to make your own, you now kind of know the process. It's definitely a lengthy process, but the more you do it, the easier it kind of gets. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, and of course, I usually save these as a PDF and then I just print them. I like saving them as PDFs because they always print correctly. Whereas if I save it as a JPEG or a PNG, sometimes the size of the image is not, you know, it doesn't fit into an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I always recommend saving this as a PDF. But that is how I make them. And if y'all have any questions, let me know. And I hope y'all have a fabulous day.